Hello mini makers. Today we're going to be making a altar, the kind of an arcane altar. So we're going to be making it kind of look like what we see in the picture here, but we're also going to be adding maybe some candles, maybe some scrolls, and a sheet or like a tarp of some sort, or something like to cover the altar as well. Okay, so to begin with this, we'll just go ahead and make a cube. Let me just import a character for scale. So we can just import one of my characters for scale. Somebody I made a long time ago. Okay, so now we can kind of halfway there. Be a little bit shorter. So I'm going to turn on the keys here so you can see. Cast keys. Yep. That. Okay. And now we can go into edit mode. Then maybe scale it in the X dimension. This. And then to make these edges here, we can go ahead and apply scale. Then add some bevels to make the top and the bottom. So this makes the very top and the bottom piece there. Let me just move the origin there. Okay, then I'm gonna hit E to exclude, and then we're gonna do Alt S to move it in maybe to here. We can have some space for these little columns. And I think I'm going to just take the top and the bottom here and exclude them, or to scale them. I'm just gonna do Alt S to have these faces, or I'm gonna do S and Shift Z to scale them and everything but the Z dimension, something like that. And then for this top one, it looks like it has a little bit of a height here, and then we can just add an edge loop using Control R, something like that. And then we can just E escape Alt S. And then these look like they have just small bevels there. So we'll just grab these two edge loops by clicking Alt left click and then Shift Alt left click. And then we'll just add a bevel using Control B. And then we want to hit C to make sure it clamps. That looks something like this. Maybe just the one instead of two. Something like that. This looks like a difference in material and not an additional bevel. Okay. So we're gonna go with that for the top. And then for the bottom, it's gonna be something similar, except it's gonna be a lot of excluding inwards. Or I could just add a bevel to here. That adds that first bevel. And then we're just gonna take this. It looks like we're gonna make the bottom longer in the Y dimension. I think I have those make them longer in the Y dimension. Slightly. And then to achieve this here, we're gonna add an edge loop. And we're just gonna scale it in using Alt S or S Shift Z. That's this part. Something like that. And then we're probably going to do the same here. Add another edge loop there. S Shift Z. And then Y slightly. That gives that little edge. And then we're probably going to add another edge loop here, and then we're going to bevel it. Or we're going to, yeah, we're going to hit S to scale it in everything but the Z dimension. So SZ again. Move it down slightly in the Z dimension by hitting G. Grab it. And then we're just going to put some bevels on it. So Control B to bevel that edge loop. Something like that. And that kind of gives us the base of this, the general look. So I'm not going to bother with this middle part because it's going to get covered by like a cloth. But I am going to do these indents here. So you can do it a couple ways. You can take the two faces on the opposite sides of each other and then hit I to inset them. Scale them in the Y dimension slightly. And then if you scale them individual origins, you can scale them about there. And you can hit E to exclude them in the X dimension. And then you can take those two edge loops here and then give them a slight bevel. And there you have that inset piece. So we're gonna add some color here to just kind of let us know what we're looking at when we paint it. So these are for mostly terrain for war games, RPGs, stuff like that. So I'm not really worried too much about like topology and making it for like a video game. I'm more worried about making it for a tabletop game. So what's more important to me is that a lot of the details are exaggerated. Like you see, this bevel is a lot more exaggerated than it is in here. Because like this bevel down here, this edge may not show up depending on how small I make it. Because I'm going to 3D print it as well. Okay, so now just add some color to this. Just to see how it looks when we paint it, kind of as a, I do this in the middle. Just as a mock-up kind of thing. Okay, that's not looking bad so far. So now what we're gonna do is we're going to go ahead and add a cloth to the middle. So to do that, we'll just go ahead and add a cube. And then we're going to grab the cube, grab the altar, selection, active selection here, scale it, and then scale it in the Y, scale it in the Z so it covers most of this area here, like that. And then we can delete these 3 faces. And then we can subdivide surfaces. Add some edge loops here. And edge loops here. Just gonna get rid of these faces on the left side or the right side. And then I'm just gonna mirror it using the mirror modifier. Mirror it across this cube, the Y. And I'm gonna move the mirror first, and then I'm gonna turn on clipping. So I can then just move this. There we go. Okay, that's how our class is gonna look. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna kind of move everything slightly closer. Because we're working with 3D printing, everything has to touch. There can't be anything floating. Something like that. And then we're gonna move this over. Okay, so after we do that, we're gonna add a solidify modifier. Then we're just gonna add one down here. Something like that, maybe. Gonna maybe move this up slightly. Slightly more thicker like that. Okay, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna add an edge loop down here. And kind of move this in. And edge loop here as well. Maybe an edge loop down there. And then in this down. Maybe you're gonna increase the solidify modifier here. You have to push it down. Push that the other way as well. So I go in the negative dimension. That, this in. And add edge loop here. So we can leave it something like that. And then what we can do is we can maybe move solidifies at the bottom right now. So if we move this to the last, starts looking a little bit closer to what we want. Okay. And then we can add some edge loops. Maybe lower the thickness slightly. Okay. And then we can just kind of move these all the way over to the side to give them kind of a sharp, slightly sharper edge. And then we're gonna make it look slightly nicer in sculpt mode. But for now, we just want to get a general shape of it. Fine. And I think we're just gonna add the one pillar. You can choose this back pillar. It's a little bit more difficult to model. Or I guess the pillars are they're the same. Okay. So we're just gonna add a pillar here. So we can do that by making a cylinder. Get over, bring it up. Like this. Then we can go ahead and do it slightly differently. There's a lot of ways you can do it. You can use the screw tool or the screw modifier to kind of draw the shape you want, but it's going to be pretty easy to just do it this way. And this way is basically you just get a cylinder, and then this cylinder is going to serve as this bottom piece. So then we're just going to extrude it again. Then we're going to inset it slightly. Then we're going to extrude it, and now this is the column piece. We're just going to keep moving up. Then we're going to hit E to extrude this, and then S, Z, so everything but the Z dimension. And then we're going to extrude it in the Z dimension again. We're going to make it slightly bigger by just hitting S to size it. Move it up slightly. Then we're going to hit E to extrude. What we're going to do is S shift Z again, and then hit E to extrude one more time. Then we're just going to make this a bit closer here, and then maybe move it out a little bit. Okay, so now there's a couple places we have to add some more detail, which is this part down here at the bottom. So to do that, we can take that edge loop we made, bevel it slightly. So that's Control B to bevel. And then you hit E to extrude, and Alt S to bring it in. And then this portion here, that's a bevel. So you can just Alt left click to select this edge loop, hit B to bevel multiple times. So you use the mouse wheel to kind of scroll up and down on how significant you want the bevel. And then we can just take this and move it up with G slightly. And then we can, that edge loop, smooth it. Now we have this bottom piece. We can actually take this entire bottom piece here, everything except for this column pillar thing, column pillar portion. Then S and then Shift Z. So I made this a little bit bigger than this because it's miniature, and if you make it too thin, then it'll just completely disappear. So we can add some subdivide surfaces. Inset the bottom face slightly, and then do the same there. Okay. And then we want to bring some edge loops here and here. And then for this top part, same thing. Take the top face, inset it with I. Bring that up. There's a small little details here. We can do that as well. I'll show you how to do that. Here, kind of like slopes in very smoothly here. We can just add an edge loop, move it all the way up, and that kind of makes it, it gives it a clear differentiation point there. Same to that. And then to make this more round, we can add an edge loop, Control R, and then just right click and then just scale it. Now it has more of a bowl look, you see there. Make this top part slightly smaller. gonna shift this up slightly. And then add another one here. Yeah, that's fine. We're gonna add one up here. You can just kind of mess with it some more. And then for this top portion, to add these kind of like divots here, we can take all of these faces. So just go into face mode by touching this thing up here, hitting 3, selecting them all, hit I to inset, and then I again to inset their individual faces. Hit E, and then Alt S. And that gives that look. We're just gonna add an edge loop near the bottom. That's something like this. And then we're just gonna mirror this across the other side. There we go. There are the 2 pillars. Something like that. Okay. So now we can go ahead and go into sculpt mode to kind of add some more detail to this tarp cloth. Okay, so we can just convert this to mesh. So that converted all of the modifiers. And then we're gonna want to apply rotation and scale. And now we're back in sculpt mode. So now we can just kind of draw on it. No problem. And you know, you do that with that. So kind of want to just take off symmetry. So another thing you want to do is make sure you have blunt faces only. Sorry. So right now you see this kind of, you see the vertices and the faces, and that's because there's just not enough vertices in the model in order to add like cloth detail. I have cloth. Anyway. So, and then you can do a bunch of stuff. Rotate, you know. Add some swirlies. But before we do that, we're going to add some dynamic topology to give it some more vertices so we can sculpt with. You could also remesh them, but I just always use this instead. So I'm gonna set it to 5 for now, and then we're gonna set our length to 0. Now I'll go with 1. Okay, so we see we have a vertice count right here. That's way too little. Now we're gonna go to 2. That's better. I think I'm just gonna go up to 5. But my computer can easily handle, easily handle about 1,000,000 vertices while sculpting, and about 12 million vertices on in the scene before it starts falling apart, and it'll fall apart. But now we can go ahead and add a little bit more detail here. So now what we can do is we can go ahead and use the draw tool to add some little cloth details. Something like that, something like that. And then I'm just gonna kind of move it this way. I guess move it this way. I'm just gonna give it a little bit of motion and movement. Probably same up here. So it's not so uniform. Like that. Like that. I'm just gonna give it some very simple I'm gonna just give it some very simple kind of cloth details manually. So I'm just gonna use the draw tool in the positive direction and then in the negative direction. Then I'm just gonna use the smooth tool at a low strength, like that. And this is gonna bunch up here, so I'll just do something like this. I assume it'll bunch up here. And then once again, go in the dimension, kind of give it a little bit of detail like that. Kind of make it look like folds and fabric bunching. Kind of looks like that. And then I'm going to use the cloth tool up top. Oh, get a little of that. I've actually never used the cloth tool, so I kind of want to see how it looks. I'm just messing around with this tool for a second, just to see what it actually does. And I don't really can't tell. I'll probably look up how to use that later. What we can do is we can add some using the rotate tool. Big swirls. So you just kind of swirl it in direction. And then we're just gonna go in with the smooth tool later. After that, smooth it. And then we're probably just gonna use the draw tool to kind of make these a little bit more extreme. Like that. I'm gonna smooth tool. Okay, just want it disturbed slightly. I think that's good enough. I'll probably go back in, make it a little bit more. And then, yeah. So you could also go in here with an alpha tool or an alpha brush. and then literally give it some fabric, like, but its cloth is pretty smooth, so I'm just gonna leave it like that. These will get caught, and leave it nice details to dry brush and edge highlight. So here, just gonna do the same in the opposite dimension. That. And we're just gonna draw positive that. This. Smooth it slightly less strong. This cloth doesn't really hang on anything. So like normally if you're doing like shirts and stuff, you can like just put a shirt on and see how the cloth of the shirt kind of folds. Or you can put like a cloth, like a towel on a chair and see how the cloth falls. But I don't have anything that looks like this in my house, so I'm just gonna go with this for now. And I'm leaving this chunky. I may make the side slightly less chunky. I'm using the pinch tool to kind of reduce the chunkiness on the sides. I'm just gonna make sure that it overlaps. And then we'll just leave it like that. Okay, we're kind of on it look a little weird because so it's magic touched. We'll make it a different color too. Yeah, like the violet or something. Okay, see, so now when you give it some color, imagine some edge highlights. It'll look pretty nice. So I also like how this top part came out, kind of like smoke. Anyway, now we can go ahead and we finished the altar piece, so now we can go ahead and maybe make it a little bit more arcane by adding some candles, maybe some scrolls. Yeah, candles and scrolls. Okay, yeah, we're just gonna add some candles and scrolls. But to do that, we'll just go cylinder here. This. So we'll just add a cylinder here. That. And then we can go ahead, make it a little bit taller. Let me see, I'm gonna see if I can find some of those incense holder. See how they look. Although that makes them look a little too, they look more religious and less arcane. So I'm gonna go just with the candles. Okay, so we have a candle. What we can do here is we can add an edge loop at the top, and then take this top portion and then hit Shift D to duplicate, and then separate with Control P, separate by selection. Now we set origins geometry, hit S to scale slightly, fill that in. So this bottom part is the candle. And the top part is going to be the melting off portion of the candle. Okay. Do the same thing here. Services. Save. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to go rotation and scale. And now we're going to make this kind of melty. So what we'll do is we'll just add some geometry using the blob tool to add some dynamic topology here, and then we will go ahead and add it. 5 is probably too little. We'll probably go 15. That. Okay. Now we've done that. Gonna get rid of, gonna smooth it slightly. And now we're gonna use snake hook tool. To kind of make it a little bit goopy. And we're also going to just, I'm gonna just duplicate this. And then move them over here. And over here. And they're gonna be different, which is why I'm not just waiting until the end to duplicate it. So we can just pull these down. This. And then we can go ahead and add a use the inflate tool where these blobs are. And so this is being caused by a lack of vertices. We can go ahead and add some more vertices here as well, just using the dynamic topology. And then we can go ahead and just smooth them. I'll probably add more, maybe 25. Okay. Like that. And then we can just make all of these goopy pieces here, inflating them. That. Slightly further down. That. Also bend it to that. Then smooth it for the higher length. Like that. And then at the top we can go ahead and use the inflate tool to kind of make the whole part, the top, kind of inflated. That. And then we can just use the lab tool, push it up slightly. And then we're just gonna smooth it at a higher length, 5. And then we're gonna go ahead and add a flame. Going to add a sphere, proportional editing by clicking this button up here, and then we're just gonna pull it up. So that's a flame. Gonna bend it slightly, a little bit more unique. I'm gonna use S, Alt S. That. Then I'm gonna subdivide surfaces. Like that. And then we're just gonna play with the flame until it looks a little bit more natural. I think person. Like that. Kind of silly, but that's fine, because actually I'll probably do the candles the same. I can just break these to mesh. I'll leave the candles to the same, union them together, and then I will go ahead and I will just go and duplicate these, and I'll make the flames different. So these are the candles. They're not set exactly in the same place. Okay. So now I will make the flame slightly different. So I just duplicate this flame, move it over. And then I'm gonna make one exactly like so these two are the same there. And then I will make the very, very basic standard flame here. Divide surfaces. Then I'll take this. Take this, scale that in slightly. Okay, so it looks like a little bit more like a flame. And then take these, and then I'll take this one and go into sculpt mode. Apply divide surfaces. Go to sculpt mode. Add some triangles. And then I use the snake hook tool to bring out other small flames. That. This. Then we can move it out a little bit. That works as a flame. Leave those candles white. Make the flames bud. Orangey bud. That. There. And I'll do the same thing to this one. We'll add some triangles, vertices, using dynamic topology. First I'll apply mesh there. Then I'll add some triangles using dynamic topology. Okay. Then we're just gonna do the same thing. We're just gonna bring up some of the other flame offshoots. Easy here. Now you get a really easy stylized flame. Something like that. No big deal. All different types of flames. Okay, so now we can go ahead and maybe add some skulls. So an easy way to add a skull is to just cylinder this big. Slightly smaller. Divide surfaces. Top and the bottom. You can take this face, scale it in, add a bunch of these. Take a few of them. Make sure it's not very one more. Gonna add one more inset here. Okay, then I'm just gonna bevel these. This. Then I'm just gonna hit E to exclude them inside. And what we can do is we can add an edge loop on top of all these. This. And then we can just mirror it. Boss Z. And it's overlapping right now. Flipping. Go. Mesh. Take this, rotate it. 50. Another one here. So that is our skull portion. So what we can do is we can also apply rotation scale. Going to apply those two. Then we can use our snake hook tool and just beat it up slightly to kind of mess up its shape a little bit. So it looks a little bit more ancient. This. And then we do the same thing for the other side. Okay. this. Okay, now that you've done that, you have two skulls here. Give them a slightly color that isn't just white. That, so it's kind of ancient-y looking. And then you want to move this so it looks like it's not completely cutting in, but you do want it to connect. And then we can go ahead and we can add just a plane in the middle. Make it join those two areas. This. And then we can go ahead and extrude this downward slightly. Then we can calculate outside. So make sure you want to make sure all your normals are facing the same way. You just go into edit mode, hit Alt N to flip to recalculate the normals on the outside. The same for this. And then we're just gonna add a ton of edge loops here. And then we're just gonna slightly move it around a little bit. Not too much. I'm gonna move it slightly so it's not so clean looking. That. Pull it up slightly too. Or we can go back. Let's go backwards. Undo that adding of edge loops. We can just subdivide it instead. Then add edge loop here, there, the back, the other side, and then we can go ahead and then we're gonna apply that, and then we're just gonna kind of move it around using the snake hook tool. It's not so form. Just gonna pull out a little bit of. We're just gonna leave it at that. Okay, and then we can union these two to each other. Join this, we just union this here. Now this is one thing. And then we can go ahead and make this crease a little bit more natural by adding some vertices across the crease. Too many. Just gonna undo that. Maybe set this to 5. And maybe. But now this is very stylized, very cartoony. Fine. I want that. So now I will go and let's use the smooth tool here. Yep, let's use the smooth tool to make this a little bit more of a natural connection point between the two. that here. Here too. Excuse me. Excuse me. Gonna smooth that there. And I'm just gonna use the crease tool here with stabilize slopes on. That. Everything here. Okay. I think there we have it, our arcane altar. Serve as a nice little centerpiece. If you make it big enough, it could be something maybe partial cover. It really depends however you want to use it. But yeah, let me know if you have anything else you want to see me make in the comments. But yeah, I hope you just enjoyed the watch, and hopefully if you do make stuff, I hope you learned something.